Greetings, and thank you for joining me for our 6th episode of Thanatology 13, Bite-Sized Death Education for the Living. I am your host, Becky Floyd from deatheducationcentral.com. This month's topic is Death in Myth from Osiris to Odin, but we'll be covering more than just those two myths, so let's dive in. When we think about myths of death, it's tempting to imagine them as strange stories from distant cultures and ancient worlds that no longer resemble our own. Yet, despite this, and thousands of years that separate us from the people who first told these stories around fires, temples, and sacred ceremonies, the emotional questions within them remain astonishingly familiar. What happens when someone we love dies? Can death be overcome? Why do suffering and transformation seem so deeply connected? And perhaps most importantly, how do human beings continue living while carrying the knowledge that we too are mortal? Across cultures and throughout history, humans have answered these questions through myth. These stories were never merely entertainment. They were symbolic maps that helped people navigate grief, fear, identity, sacrifice, and change. Long before psychology or modern thanatology, myths gave shape to the emotional realities of mortality. Here we're going to explore 5 powerful myths of death and transformation from around the world. Osiris from ancient Egypt, Inanna from Sumeria, Odin from the Norse traditions, Orpheus and Eurydice from Greece, and Mictekacewatl from Aztec cosmology. Although these myths emerge from radically different cultures, they reveal something remarkable. Again and again, humanity imagined death not simply as an ending, but as a threshold, a crossing point, a descent into darkness from which meaning, wisdom, transformation, or remembrance might emerge. And perhaps that is why these stories still speak to us today. We're going to begin in ancient Egypt with the myth of Osiris. Osiris was a divine king associated with fertility, order, civilization, and the sustaining rhythms of life itself. According to the myth, his brother Set grew jealous and murdered him, dismembered his body, and scattered the pieces across the land. The imagery is violent and chaotic. The sacred king is broken apart. Order itself seems shattered. But the story doesn't end there. Osiris's wife, who also was his sister, Isis, journeys across Egypt, gathering the fragments of his body. Through devotion, ritual, mourning, and magical restoration, she reassembles him. Osiris is transformed and becomes ruler of the underworld and judge of the dead. What's fascinating here is that Osiris doesn't simply come back in the modern sense. He enters a new state of existence. Death changes him, but it does not erase him. For the ancient Egyptians, this myth reflected larger patterns within nature itself. The Nile flooded and receded, crops died and returned. The sun disappeared into darkness each evening before rising again at dawn. Again and again, and death and renewal were intertwined. This helps explain why funerary rituals were so important to Egyptian civilization. The body mattered, memory mattered, ritual continuity mattered. The dead were not abandoned. They remained connected to cosmic order and to the living community. Even today, the Osiris myth still resonates because it speaks to one of the deepest hopes of humanity, that fragmentation and loss are not necessarily the end of the story. From Egypt, we travel even farther back into one of the oldest recorded myths humanity possesses, the descent of Inanna. Inanna was a powerful Sumerian goddess associated with love, fertility, sexuality, and political authority. Yet despite her power, she chose to descend into the underworld ruled by her sister Ereshkigal. To enter this realm, Inanna must pass through 7 gates. At each gate, she is required to surrender something: jewelry, garments, symbols of rank and identity. Piece by piece, she is stripped bare until nothing remains of the powerful queen who began the journey. When she reaches the depths of the underworld, she is judged, killed, and hung upon a hook. It's difficult to overstate how psychologically profound this myth feels even today. Death here is not simply physical, it is symbolic. Identity dissolves, ego dissolves, certainty dissolves. Inanna undergoes a complete stripping away of self. Eventually, she is restored and allowed to return to the world above, though not without sacrifice and consequence. The descent changes her permanently. Modern audiences often recognize something deeply familiar in this myth. Major grief, trauma, depression, illness, or life upheaval can feel exactly like this kind of underworld journey. A person enters darkness stripped of former assumptions, roles, and identities. The self that emerges afterward is not identical to the one that entered. Inanna's story reminds us that transformation is rarely comfortable. Modern culture often frames suffering as meaningless interruption, something to eliminate as quickly as possible. But ancient myths frequently understood descent itself as meaningful. Sometimes growth requires dismantling. Sometimes transformation begins in darkness. From the underworld of Sumeria, we move northward into the cold landscapes of Norse mythology and the story of Odin. Unlike Osiris or Inanna, Odin's encounter with death is voluntary. He sacrifices himself to himself. According to the myth, Odin hangs upon the great world tree Yggdrasil for 9 nights. He is pierced by his own spear, deprived of food and drink, suspended between life and death. Only through this ordeal does he gain the knowledge of the runes, symbols associated with wisdom, language, magic, and cosmic understanding. This is not resurrection mythology, it is initiatory mythology. Nearness to death becomes the pathway to knowledge. Many traditional societies believed symbolic death experiences were necessary for transformation. Shamans, initiates, and spiritual seekers often underwent rituals designed to dissolve the old self before reintegration into society. Odin's sacrifice reflects this ancient understanding that wisdom carries a cost. There is something recognizably human about Odin's relentless pursuit of meaning. Human beings are uniquely aware of their own mortality, and yet we continue searching for truth anyway. We create philosophy, religion, art, science, and storytelling while knowing that our lives are finite. In Odin, we see that paradox embodied. The myth suggests that confronting mortality directly may deepen rather than diminish life. Awareness of death can sharpen perception, reveal meaning, and transform consciousness itself. Next, we descend once again into the underworld through one of the most heartbreaking myths ever told, the story of Orpheus and Eurydice. Orpheus was a legendary musician whose songs were said to charm animals, trees, and even stones. After the death of his beloved Eurydice, he becomes overwhelmed by grief and journeys into the underworld to bring her back. Armed only with music and devotion, Orpheus succeeds in doing something almost unimaginable. His sorrow is so profound and his song so beautiful that even Hades, ruler of the dead, is moved to pity. Eurydice may return to the world of the living under one condition. Orpheus must not look back at her until they have completely left the underworld. As they ascend towards the surface, uncertainty begins to consume him. Is she really there? Has he been deceived? Is he already alone again? And at the final moment, he turns, and Eurydice vanishes forever. Unlike many modern narratives, this myth offers no triumphant victory over death. Love cannot fully conquer mortality. Some losses remain irreversible. And perhaps this is exactly why the story continues to resonate so deeply. Orpheus's failure is profoundly human. Grief is filled with doubt, longing, and the desperate desire to hold on to what is slipping away. The backward glance becomes symbolic of mourning itself. Modern societies often pressure people toward closure or recovery, as though grief were a temporary malfunction to overcome efficiently. But Orpheus reminds us that grief is inseparable from love. To love deeply is to become vulnerable to devastating loss. His tragedy is not weakness, it is humanity. Finally, we turn to Aztec cosmology and the powerful figure of Mictecacihuatl, the Lady of the Dead. Mictecacihuatl ruled alongside her husband over Mictlan, the underworld. She is often depicted as a skeletal female figure adorned with symbols of death, which can initially appear frightening to modern audiences, shaped by horror imagery and Western discomfort with mortality. Yet her role was not simply destructive. She guarded the bones of the dead and presided over ancestral remembrance. Scholars widely recognize her as one of the mythological foundations connected to modern Dia de los Muertos traditions in Mexico. What is striking about these traditions is their intimacy with death. The dead are not hidden away or erased from communal life. They are remembered through altars, offerings, food, flowers, candles, photographs, music, and storytelling. The boundary between living and dead becomes symbolically permeable through ritual remembrance. This reflects a dramatically different relationship with mortality than the one dominant in many modern industrial societies. Contemporary Western culture often sanitizes and distances death from daily life. Mourning becomes private. Grief becomes isolated. The dead are frequently absent from ordinary conversation. But traditions surrounding Mictecacihuatl suggest another possibility. The dead remain part of the community. Relationship continues through memory, ritual, and symbolic connection. Psychologically, this is deeply significant. Human beings appear naturally inclined toward continuing bonds with the dead. We keep photographs, we revisit stories, we preserve heirlooms, we internally speak to lost loved ones long after their physical absence. Rather than pathologizing these bonds, cultures shaped by traditions like Dia de los Muertos ritualize them openly and communally. Death does not erase relationship. Across all of these myths, death appears not merely as biological cessation, but as transformation, sacrifice, descent, rupture, wisdom, and remembrance. Osiris teaches continuity through fragmentation. Inanna reveals transformation through descent. Odin seeks wisdom through sacrifice. Orpheus embodies grief and irreversible loss. Mictekasihuatl reminds us that the dead remain woven into the lives of the living through remembrance. These myths differ enormously in imagery and theology, yet all grapple with the same essential mystery: how human beings make meaning in the face of mortality. Perhaps that is why these stories continue to endure even in our increasingly secular age. Science may explain biological death, but myths speak to emotional truth. They help articulate experiences that remain difficult to quantify: grief, longing, fear, transformation, awe, and the search for meaning. In the end, myths of death are rarely just about dying. They are about what the living do with death. We descend into darkness. We seek wisdom. We gather fragments. We mourn. We remember. We tell stories. And through those stories, humanity continues its ancient effort to transform mortality into meaning. I hope you enjoyed this exploration of death and myth and how we can benefit from studying and learning from the lessons it had to teach us. If you did, please like, share, follow, and subscribe, and tell your friends or anyone you think might enjoy a little death education. Thank you.